Hello and welcome to the Empowered Couples Podcast, where here you get modern, non-boring relationship advice for you and your partner to communicate like pros, fight smarter, and stay on the same team no matter the challenge that you face. I am one of your hosts, Aaron Freeman.
And I'm Jocelyn Freeman, but all of you know us as the Freemans.
And this episode is about ending the battle for fairness within your relationship roles. And this is a great one.
Yeah, and truly, we caught ourselves. I remember having like an out-of-body experience a little over a week ago, catching us have this conversation. I remember like standing there going, oh my gosh, this is one of those moments where we are doing this tit for tat and literally listing off to each other the things that we're each doing.
Well, I think we got more present to what it's like to have a job, right? And to come home from work. And if you've been following the podcast, you know it's been a very challenging season for me individually. And then obviously the dynamics that played out for both of us with the investment and it not going well. And that showing me different places where I wasn't secure within myself or my own value and money and all that was being brought up, right?
Well, and you were gone like 45, 50 hours a week.
I did over 150 hours. I did multiple 12, 13-hour days, 7 days in a row. I mean, honestly, I really did kill myself to get this to end up working out. And it was interesting because that, for us, unlike any other time, brought up this back and forth, this battle for fairness. So when I would come back, which is much like many of you maybe that go out to a job and then come back home. So I would come back home and it was so stressful. I'm having like 100 conversations a day. I'm writing checks to people. I'm managing the workload for the next day. I'm managing work that's not getting done, finding problems. I'm so tired. It's 110 degrees. I painted the roof myself. I spread all this rock. I did so much stuff myself. And I would come back home and then you would like ask for help on something.
Yeah, well, because I was here and I was managing our business. Thank goodness. We're so grateful that we have a home-based business and taking care of Sky. Now, we did have some help. Thank goodness for that as well. But yeah, I was like, okay, you're home. I need this and I need help with that. And I miss you and let's talk. And we have these decisions to make. And so, yeah, it was a very challenging season. And by the way, I know it sounds funny for us to say what it's like to have a job. We have a home-based business. This is what we do full-time. And we do remember years ago what it was like to work jobs and go to separate directions.
Yeah, so in our dynamic, I would come back and you would ask for some help around making food or dinner or organizing, cleaning, helping with Sky. And it's just like, I don't want to say natural, but because of this dynamic, I would end up saying, do you have any idea how much I'm doing?
Yeah, and one thing that we always take note of is the themes of what we're hearing with couples. And I promise you, like within a day, like 24 hours around that interaction that we had, not only with certain friends, but even couples that we were doing the sessions with. I was doing them while Aaron was gone, but Aaron's back. He's in the sessions back again. And I literally heard so many times about this battle for fairness. And so I was like, this is more than just happening with us for a second. And it was happening with a lot of couples. And that's what we pay attention to are the themes. So even just check in within yourself. Maybe you haven't said it out loud to each other lately. Like you haven't had a moment where you're arguing in the kitchen over who's doing more and who's doing what, even though kitchen seems to be a place where a lot of arguments happen. But maybe this has been a thought in your mind, right? So you haven't said it out loud to each other, but maybe there's been this little voice that goes, interesting, they're sitting down while I'm doing all this, and don't they know how much I've done? Or, oh, interesting, I noticed they didn't get that scheduled when I asked them. So you're like catching yourself noting.
Tallying and keeping a scorecard.
Exactly. And then eventually maybe it bottles or kind of boils and gets to be a bigger deal inside of you. And then in the heat of the moment, you bring it up to each other, right? It's like it looks for the perfect opportunity to list these things out. And another thing with this, battle for fairness is we're just hearing from so many couples, just the amount of overwhelm. I mean, there's just a lot on your plate. And I just want to empathize with you, human to human. You guys are both doing a lot. From work to managing the house to parenting to trying to support family, friends, stay up to date with things, and then maybe have a little time for yourself. There's a lot on your plate. So another theme is just how much, couples can kind of be more reactive to each other and more like nitpicking, paying attention to the details. because of the amount of overwhelm with the roles and responsibilities, which actually, before we go further, because we are going to give you some more insight into this, I just have to say it now. Make sure you are registered for a marriage web class on September 15th. Like, this is just, no matter what, even if you haven't had a battle over fairness, recently, honestly, this content is something we haven't taught publicly, maybe ever. In our private sessions, it's something we cover, but this is going to be a really powerful web class. No matter what you kind of are experiencing as a couple, we're going to go into overcoming overwhelm, reducing resentment, different aspects of roles and responsibilities. I'm really excited for this content. So go to onlinecouplesworkshops.com. Cannot wait for this one.
And it's for ending this battle of fairness, because there's so many different parts and dynamics. We really can't get into it on a podcast, because there's also things we want you to write down and
visuals,
discover for yourself. But it is really tied to relationship roles, reducing overwhelm, overcoming resentment, becoming more of a unified team, which I think is the one point we'll kind of give away here on the podcast. But it all still leads to a certain giving the scraps of your energy and your time to your partner. Again, we're going to go more in on the web class, so make sure you do register at onlinecouplesworkshops.com. It's free, so September 15th. But there's a lot around not feeling appreciated, not feeling seen for what you do. There's also a lot here for me around being disconnected or out of alignment on your values, as well as really, really thinking about this. If something is out of integrity within yourself, then this battle for fairness can kind of show up where you're trying to convince someone to validate you for a place that you're out of integrity. So this is a deep conversation, hence why we got to do a whole web class. So many different parts, but we wanted to talk about the front side of this battle for fairness, how it shows up, how the conversation starts, but there's so many sources and roots to this.
Absolutely. Well, what we want to talk about here on the podcast today is how instead of focusing on fairness, you can actually start to focus on what you value. And specifically the upcoming season. Aaron and I have been talking a lot about this season right now, and actually our future season with Sky, and how our life before was different, and what we valued before was different, or actually the more prominent values. And so we had different activities, and we did different things, and we operated in a different way. But now this future, which we're kind of thinking the next 1 to 3 years, what do we value, and what adjustments do we need to make in our roles and responsibilities, and how we operate, and what we say yes to in life and what we say no to, so that we can stay aligned with our values. Because I want to underline, you kind of went over it quickly, but it's powerful. If you are feeling frustrated, incongruent with yourself, with each other, if you're just feeling an out of sync, it's likely that you are not aligned with your values.
And one thing to say about that, because you said this to me the other day, you had heard it somewhere else, but it is so true. I mean, your values, as much as we think of those as being very set, your values, or what you value for different seasons, actually change. And that's a part where you really need to do some digging, some discovery, get some clarification, communicate with each other. It may be that as an individual, you're starting to value something different than your partner. So how do you navigate that? So yes, values do change. These are not things that are necessarily always the same.
Exactly.
So like for us, for example, we valued freedom, we valued networking and
adventure.
Community, adventure, traveling, and of course, the season with a child changes what you value. I think it's sort of an obvious statement, but is our value now more about family connections and
memories,
sort of family legacy and creating memories? And it is actually. So battle for fairness, if you're holding on to even like a past season or a past life where it's, even for me, I want to go to cafes and I want to meet up with people, that can trigger a battle for fairness, because if you're really tied to a value of family and family memories and cousins and Sky growing up that way, that's going to create a conflict or a battle for fairness and like who gets to choose the next path.
Exactly. And so we're going to go into this more on the web class, but we wanted to give you like a little teaser or a thought right now, which is shifting your focus from fairness to values. And then, of course, we're going to talk more about how to then have the two of you be in sync with each other, because you are partners. And you don't want it to be 70-30, 70% effort on one person and 30 and you're dragging the other person. No, like that's not sustainable. And so it's truly like, okay, these are our family values. This is what we value for our next season. Now, how do we both need to operate to fulfill on that? And then we're going to give you some great strategies that we use to reduce overwhelm, to get more in sync and get more harmony. So we can't wait for that, but excited to hear about your conversation around values. So with that, we love you all. We will see you on the web class and we will talk to you on the next episode.